going to start with you. Do you have a slide deck you're going to share with us, correct?
Yes, we do. I'm going to introduce one of my senior infrastructure project advisors. Craig Littikin is with us today. I don't know if you see him on the screen or not, but he's going to be advancing the slides. This is a combination slideshow of all the panelists. So I can assure you all that you will not hear my voice the whole time. There are others that will be speaking. We do have kind of a robust slide deck, so we'll probably improvise as we go through. But if you are ready, we are glad to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Awesome. Thank you. Well, thanks, first of all, for inviting us to attend. We really appreciate the opportunity to share a little background about the program. So I'll start with the Permitting Council overview. For those of you that may have never heard of us, we were established in 2015 through the Fixing America Surface Transportation Act, Title 41, FAST-41. We'll talk a little bit about what FAST really means in permitting and a little bit later in the presentation. But the Permitting Council body was established inside Title 41 to help oversee, if you will, and provide transparency and accountability in the federal permitting authorization review process. There was a sunset on the council that was removed in 2021, and that's when the Permitting Council agency became it's a living, breathing federal agency with full responsibilities, as all agencies do. We're a very small but mighty team, and we have noticeably increased our portfolio since the sunset was lifted and we became an agency, if you will. So I wanted to just kind of share a little bit of that background with you because I'm going to talk a little bit about the active portfolio a little bit later in the presentation. The Permitting Council is comprised of 13 federal agency at the Deputy Secretary level, plus the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, the Chair of the Council on Environmental Quality, and is headed up by our Executive Director. And they are the voting body of the council. So just wanted to kind of flag that for you and the table set as we move forward and talk about how we interact with all the federal agencies on a daily basis and where decisions are made at the highest level in federal government from this council. We'll talk a little bit about FAST-41 benefits, and like I said earlier, speak to sectors and infrastructure portfolio. And then another new addition to our agency is the work that we have been prescribed to do in supporting permitting excellence. So that's the agenda for our time together today. But as I mentioned, we're going to be taking a few breaks in between hearing my voice and going to our panelists at NTIA and as well with the Alaska DNR. So what are we doing right now with the Permitting Council? We're investing in America. We are a key part of the federal government advancing the historic infrastructure investments. We're uniquely positioned, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, as a kind of an independent agency with connection support through the Executive Office of the President. So we're positioned to bring the government stakeholders together to help accelerate the permitting process. And our overall goal is to deliver the benefits of infrastructure investments to the American people. I think the next slide I've already shared a little bit about the Permitting Council, so I will not run through each name, but for your benefit, this is the representation by logo of the Permitting Council members. So the benefits of FAST-41, predictability, transparency, and accountability. So what do? Well, right now, we do not charge a fee if you want to become a FAST-41 covered project. There are certain criteria, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit, that you'll have to meet, but it's a fairly simple process to submit what we call the FAST-41 initiation notice, lovingly the FIN. And from there, once coverage is determined, you have a lot of benefits that are afforded you as a project sponsor with coverage. One of the things is the creation of a public-facing timetable and a structure review for the federal permitting. That means that we come together with you, the developer or project sponsor, and the federal agency that's leading the NEPA review. It may be, or it may be it doesn't require NEPA. We do have a criteria in which that happens. But so that at that point, the facilitating agency and any cooperating agencies bring everyone to the table. We talk through what authorizations are going to be needed for your type of project, what kind of timelines may be required, and we call that a coordinated project plan. The nice thing, and this is kind of where I would think the FAST maybe plays in a little bit, once we get an initiation notice or an application for coverage, there's 14 days for coverage determination, statutorily required 14 days. So if you send an application in today, by the 29th of October, you would know if you had coverage under FAST-41. From that date, there's 60 days for the federal agencies that are involved in your project to prepare a coordinated project plan and to, in consultation with you, a timeline for your work. The key takeaway I want to mention on FAST-41 as we talk a little more in depth is the fact that FAST-41 is something that you can enter in at the beginning of your project, in the middle of your project, or toward the end of your project. It does not have a timeline that is that puts you in a position where you can't come in at any time to reap the benefits of FAST-41 coverage. And so that means a lot of times we see projects that come in before NEPA. We see projects in the middle of NEPA. We see projects after NEPA because there's still federal authorizations and reviews that are usually needed after the NEPA completes. So just wanted to flag that. We can definitely talk about that during Q&A later if you have some questions. One of the other things that we do benefit is we can convene agencies. We bring together executive director through the statutory, through statute, has the ability to bring the agencies to talk through federal authorization reviews, timetables, and any challenges that you may be facing in your project. And we utilize the convening authority appropriately and as needed. We also coordinate across the federal agencies. We work with all federal agencies, and some we meet with monthly, some less frequently. It's just depending on the type of work that's being done in the portfolio. But we definitely have that in with all the federal agencies and can bring them, once again, to the table at any time to discuss. We also create some predictability in the process, because if you're not a FAST-41 covered project, you may not have a timetable in front of you. You may not have the benefit of knowing who to talk to inside federal agencies or what authorizations you may need for your projects. So that predictability is, I think, one of the benefits that we bring that helps you understand where some delays may be and also make some very informed business decisions. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the sectors. We have 19. I've boldened broadband for the conversation today, but we have 19 FAST-41 sectors. So any project that falls within these sectors, and then if you'll go to the next slide, and meets the required criteria, can become FAST-41 covered. So the majority of our portfolio falls under the objective criteria, subject to NEPA, a greater than $200 million investment. But we do have tribal projects. And the tribal projects we currently have are broadband. We have 3 tribal broadband projects in the portfolio. They're all subject to NEPA. They're all sponsored by a tribe or have some of the activity located on tribal lands. And they're all under $200 million of investment, because for tribal criteria, the $200 million threshold does not apply. So we're excited to be able to share that with you and offer that to this group today to notify that if you're interested in coverage in your tribe, know that the $200 million investment is not something that will be an obstacle for you to become FAST-41 covered. We also have a carbon capture criteria that was introduced to us a couple of years ago through legislation, and that is for any kind of infrastructure associated with carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And that is a unique criteria because carbon capture does not require there be a NEPA action. So kind of a little different than our other 2 that we just talked about. Next slide, please. So the current FAST-41 portfolio, I must admit, is not as current as I would like because we now have 26 active projects. So my apologies, I didn't get this slide updated. We now have 17 in the renewable energy production. We vary, and we started with 33 projects this year, 2024 timeframe. We've had projects that have completed their federal authorization and review processes. Therefore, they rolled off, if you will, and out of the portfolio. They're obviously in the overall that we consider, but we're no longer managing those projects because they've gone into constructions, which is a wonderful success story. So we do have ebb and flow from our dollar amount of portfolio and, of course, active projects. I will highlight again that we have 3 broadband projects right now, as you can see on the top right. And we are currently under review of 2 additional projects that have submitted their initiation notice, one with expectation of adding to our portfolio officially at the end of this week, and then another one toward the end of next week. So we, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're seeing an uptick in different sectors and in interest toward the end of the year, which is kind of an interesting time for people to be coming in. But I think we all know there's an election, so there's a lot of movement and consideration of that. And I just want to go ahead and hit on the fact that we are bipartisan. We are very much supported from both sides of the aisle, and we are a federal agency. So I just feel like that's important to note because we've had a lot of questions about what does it mean when the election comes. Well, for Craig and I, it just means we keep working. That's what it means. So next slide, please. So the permitting dashboard, this is one of the things where we talked about the public timetable. So once at day 14, when a project becomes covered, you get the benefit of a project page on the federal permitting dashboard. The one that we're highlighting here is our first tribal broadband project that came to us, which is Santa Fe Indian School. It's 19 tribe consortium. So it is very unique in a variety of ways, but I just wanted to highlight for you all because I do think that's a very unique situation with the Indian School. This is the project page. You'll see that it speaks to what the name of the project is, when it was added to the dashboard, which is back in February of 2023. It highlights below where we are in environmental review and permitting processes. It's in progress. It gives an estimated date of completion. You'll note that we are noticing that there was a challenge with our dashboard because, like with any technology, sometimes there's a bug. So we'll be updating that date that says subject to change. Below, you'll see how many authorizations are listed, how many have been completed. You'll see the 0 of number right now. You'll see the sector is broadband. The category is FAST-41, and the lead agency is the Department of Commerce, which is the NTIA who's with us today. And then below, you'll notice that there are all the other federal agencies that are involved in the permitting process are also represented by their logo. To the right, very far right, you'll notice that there's a pin location for this project. It's a linear project, right? Broadband projects are long linear projects. So this is kind of a midpoint in this drop just for situational awareness for those that might be interested in which part of New Mexico is this project originating. You'll notice there's lead agency information and sponsor contact information. So this is the first step of having a project covered for public display. This is what would come out initially from having coverage for the public to view. All right, next slide. So at day 60, as I mentioned, there's a coordinated project plan and a timetable due for the projects. This is what populates at day 60. All the information that is inside the coordinated project plan that the lead and cooperating agencies as well as the developer have consulted on together. And so to the left of this Gantt chart, you'll see their federal authorizations listed, whether it be a right-of-way or Section 106 review. And as you look through, you'll notice the bar charts have, some are solid, some are grayed, some are hashed, and you'll see there's a legend at the bottom that kind of speaks to what that looks like. This Gantt chart is developed with the idea that you'll be able to have a status update in real time. So each time a milestone is completed inside the respective action, it is marked complete. If a milestone date is moved inside the respective action, then this chart will reflect a movement of that date. And it is a tool to help understand where the project is going, whether it's moving right or it's moving left. It's also a means to, because you can click on each of these individually. We don't have that built in for you today for the slideshow, but you could go look at this and click on, like, say, section 106 and see that there's 3 milestones, and you would be able to tell if there's action by the federal agency pending or if there's action by the applicant pending. And so that becomes another piece of accountability for not only the applicant or developer, project sponsor, I use all the terms like synonymously, or the federal agency. So the accountability is there for both. All right, next slide, please. So the Santa Fe Union School, the overall project footprint is approximately 324 miles. It originates in Albuquerque. It goes through the Sachtleben of Pueblo, Acoma Pueblo, and the Zuni Pueblo lands. And if the project ends up with final authorizations and permitting, it will provide high-speed internet to communities and students in the area. It is the first broadband project that was covered through FAST-41, and it's the first project to gain coverage through the travel criteria. So we wanted to highlight that particular one. But for you in Alaska, yay, we have one for you as well, Alaska Fiber Optics. So excited that you all came and joined us for FAST-41 coverage. Roughly about a $51 million investment, and should be about 500 plus families that will be served. It is a travel broadband. It's under the travel broadband connectivity program. So I want to take a break. I know I talk really quickly, but I know we only have a little bit of time together. But we have, I think the next slide is going to turn it over to our friends at NTIA. So Tyler, Craig will continue to move the slides for you, and I will turn it over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm Tyler. I'm the program officer for NTIA for the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, and I am the lone NTIA employee up here in Alaska. So this is a really cool project. It is a partnership between Doyon and ACS, and as Jennifer mentioned, it's $51 million that was funded through the first round of the Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, and it runs from Fort Yukon down to Tanana, as you can see on the screen there, which is just about 450 miles. 3/4 of that is going to be submerged into the Yukon River. And it's part of a broader concept where eventually we want to get fiber all the way down the Yukon, through the Kuskokwim, and to the YK Delta region. And we've actually funded, along with USDA, several projects in the YK region that start in the lower Kuskokwim region. We've got Bethel Native Corporation and GCI are bringing fiber from Levelok to Bethel. And then we've got Chalista and ACS coming up the Kuskokwim River all the way up to Kalskeg. And there's a portage, of course, from the Yukon to the Kuskokwim. I think it's about 30 miles as the crow flies, 80 miles if you're traveling by boat, an old portage. And the idea is that eventually those two will connect, the two rivers will connect, and you will then have fiber all the way from the interior of Alaska to Bethel and then down to Levelok, which is pretty incredible. I got to go to Bethel again a couple of weeks ago, and just the difference over the past year as they have installed LEO is pretty cool. You stay at the Longhouse and you can watch Netflix now, whereas a couple of years ago, you could barely use your phone in Bethel. So I think that's pretty neat. And in a few years from now, we're actually going to have potentially 3 different sources of fiber in the region. If we can get fiber down the rivers, if we can get fiber from Levelok, and then NTIA has also funded a $150 million project with Quintillion from Nome to Homer. It's a subsea fiber project. So I think that's pretty amazing to think about, that Bethel's going to go from the type of internet that it had over the past couple of years to potentially having 3 sources of fiber plus LEO. That's a lot of redundancy. That's competitive transport. So to me, this is a pretty amazing project. We like this project because of its FAST-41. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, this is basically a case study of this project and its relation to FAST-41. FAST-41 makes it really easy to track. We can go to the next page. If you want to see the status of this project, the Doyon and ACS project, you can go to this link, or you can do like me and just Google FAST-41 dashboard and click the first link that comes up. And that'll take you right to a status sheet similar to the one Jennifer just showed. We can go to the next slide and take a look at that. And look at that, there we go. You can see where everything stands with this project. This is publicly available information. You can see this project started in 2023, and listed there is each agency's estimate of how long it's going to take to complete their review, their portion of the permitting. The blue is their estimate. The gray is any extensions they need. As you can see, there was an extension needed. I think this was for a programmatic with the SHPO office for some cultural resources. And yeah, this is available to anyone. It is pretty cool to see. This is great because it gives, obviously, it lets the applicant and the public easily see all the steps that need to be taken before they can actually put shovels in the ground. It provides a level of transparency, and it also ensures that all the extensions are for a good cause. When someone wants an extension, they can't just say, we're extending it. They have to go to the permitting council. They have to give a reason for the extension, and it gets adjudicated. So that is another really strong benefit to the program, where you're not, I know sometimes when people are in the permitting process, it feels like just a black box where you don't know what's going on. But with FAST-41, that's not the case at all. You can see exactly what's going on. You know there's transparency, you know there's accountability. What FAST-41 does not let you do, does not let us do, is tell other agencies what to do. I know many of you probably met Amanda Pereira from our permitting team as she comes up here. And she says that we understand that these agencies' mission is not our mission. Our mission is broadband. Other agencies have different missions. So our goal is not to tell these folks what to do, and that's not the point of FAST-41. The point of FAST-41 is transparency, coordination, and accountability. Ultimately, it empowers you, the awardee, because it lets you know exactly what's going on. And the end result, of course, is a better process. As you saw there, Doyon started their project early in 2023, and they are almost done. They're waiting on one final review from BLM for right-of-way. We're expecting that any day now. And then they're wrapped up. They're wrapped up on permitting for an extremely complicated project. These river lay fiber projects are, I mean, they're really brand new. So this is revolutionary stuff, and that is a fairly short permitting period for how complicated this project is. So yeah, I will turn it back over to you, Jennifer.
Awesome, thanks, Tyler. Yeah, I'll mention that we are excited to see that this one may wrap all federal permitting authorization and reviews before December 2024, so before the end of the year, and look forward to future projects that may be coming our way from Alaska Broadband. I mentioned we have 3 tribal broadband projects. Our most recent ad was the Winnebago Tribe Broadband Connectivity Project. Total investment right now is $35 million. Looks like we have about 235 miles of underground, FTTP, 886 households could be served, 46 businesses or organizations. It has 6 federal actions associated with it. So we're excited to have that one added as well. More broadband, more travel. We're excited about it. I will go ahead and mention, because I am staying on broadband, but from a travel perspective, one of the things that we've recently received is a request under travel criteria for coverage for other water resources, which is one of our sectors. And so just want to highlight that while we're speaking a lot of broadband, there are other opportunities for tribes as well. We've done a lot of work. Craig's done a lot of work on California Middle Mile Broadband Project. If you go and search FAST-41 dashboard, you're not going to see this one. And I'll tell you why. Because this is an example of where we bring federal agencies together. There has been a lot of conversation with the state of California, with the Department of Transportation, all the state offices, the federal land management agencies. We've spent a lot of time and effort working through what this project could be, what this project will be, how it will be permitted. And at the end of the day, because so much of this right-of-way is in Department of Transportation lands, Department of Transportation, by the way, is exempt from FAST-41 requirement. So this project did not avail itself ultimately to FAST-41 coverage. However, the work that we did and Craig did a lot of it, and tying it into with the other federal agencies to include the Council of Environmental Quality, there have been agreements signed The letter of intent was signed, which defines the cooperation, coordination, and conflict resolution plan for the 13 federal agencies involved, which I think is a success story in itself to get everyone to an agreement on how they're going to handle things, how they're going to speak to one another, and how they're going to advance this project. Over 10,000 miles of middle mile there in California. Investment $3.25 billion. So in this case, this project, if it would have availed itself to FAST-41, criteria, it would have come in under objective, obviously, with the investment and the need for the NEPA review. I just wanted to highlight this as one of those that is not FAST-41 covered, but it doesn't mean that we did not have a part in making this successful to date. And this showcases our authority in convening and facilitating conversations with the federal agencies to advance permitting excellence for infrastructure projects here in the United States. Next slide, please. So I talked about supporting permitting excellence. Through the Inflation Reduction Act, the Permitting Council agency received $350 million. That money was not just for us to spend. That money was for us to identify areas in which we could help advance federal permitting in with the federal agencies. We've done that in a variety of ways. We've done that through interagency agreements in which we're funding positions at federal agencies. We're funding tools through our infrastructure technology and investments. We're also funding tribes. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But $350 million was awarded to us into our environmental review improvement fund, and we have distributed over 90% of those dollars out to federal agencies. Department of Commerce is one of those agencies that received funding from us and has been using those dollars to hire term and temporary employees, and employ new tools and technologies as needed. So we're excited to be a part of advancing permitting excellence across the country right now. Next slide. So the Environmental Review and Improvement Fund, which is our general operating fund. So you'll notice the extra part here is the assistance program, and that's what I was just speaking to. We have $170 million directed to aid federal agencies in carrying out the infrastructure permit review and authorization responsibilities, including hiring experts and acquiring new tools and resources. So just kind of repeating what I just said, but I will note, highlight here that we've built permitting capacity by funding 225 positions at federal agencies with those dollars. That's really significant work over a year's time. If you ever have worked for a federal agency or are attempted to work for a federal agency, it takes a while to hire people. So the fact that we have 225 positions that are funded and are being and building up the capacity of federal agencies for federal permitting and review within 12 months is pretty big accomplishment. Next slide, please. So, Environmental Review Improvement Fund Tribal Assistance Program. So I spoke a little bit about this a minute ago. Our initial goal was $5 million for tribal assistance because we just weren't sure, what tribes may need, what interest there may be from tribes. So we set $5 million aside from the very beginning. And we are seeing tribes come in and have an interest in using these funds. So the funds are available to support tribes in various permitting review activities. Maybe they just need a contractor, maybe there's supplies are needed, maybe there's technical training. There's a lot of opportunity inside the funds for tribes. We have seen the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe and the Stockbridge-Muncie community apply and receive funding. We do have we have a third application that's under review right now, and we have had interest from some of the offshore wind projects that is the combination of several tribes. One of the highlights for the tribes is this is not competitive. It's not you have to have, the best write-up, or you have to have, a real lengthy request, for the dollars. There is what we feel is a fairly simple as far as like clear and not too long application for tribes. And we're still taking applications for funding. If there's a tribe that's interested in funding, the only caveat is that you are engaged in a FAST-41 covered project. And there's a dollar amount associated with one FAST-41 covered project. If you're a tribe that's engaged with multiple FAST-41 covered projects, then for each additional project, there's additional dollars that can be provided to the tribe. So this is a very important part of our program, and we are excited to see tribes coming in and wanting to use these dollars. And we have set aside additional funds should we reach the $5 million and we need more for tribes to be actively engaged in the consultation for FAST-41 covered projects. Next slide, please. I mentioned their Environmental Review Improvement Fund, or Information Technology. I may have said infrastructure, sorry, technology earlier. Information Technology Fund. We had more than $40 million that was announced, and this was a competitive process for federal agencies. And we have 12 federal agencies that have been awarded dollars to speed federal permitting reviews, improve data quality, and foster public transparency. You'll see on the right side of the slide where the funds went: technology, new tools, and then some cutting edge technologies that'll go across the federal government. So we're really excited to see those moving forward. Next slide. So seeing the big picture, this is kind of focusing on being a center for permitting excellence. We have reports that we do every quarter on agency compliance with FAST-41. We have an annual report to Congress that speaks to how we, the Permitting Council agency, and the Permitting Council itself, the body, how we do and for FAST-41 and advancing federal permitting authorization review. And then we have best practices that we issue each year, and the agencies report on to the Office of Management and Budget. So there's a lot of different reports that go through our agency, and some of them speak directly to how agencies are performing under FAST-41, and the other speak to how we are doing with the task that we were assigned through statute. So broadly applying best practices for covered projects to all infrastructure, that's something that we do each and every time. We have multiple, and I'll use offshore wind for our renewables. We've learned a lot. The United States has learned a lot about offshore wind as a new industry, and the permitting is improving in that industry because of the work that we're doing together with the Department of Interior, Department of Commerce, with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, with the Environmental Protection Agency, with the respective SHPOs, and with the tribes. It's an industry that's getting better, and we're employing best practices on each project. From the first one, we learned so much to now, I think we're at 14. But really wanted to hit on best practices because that's something that we provide a report on every year, and the agencies submit on our recommendations for best practices as well. We identify common sources of delay, and that's one of the things that we do very frequently. The friction, there's inconsistencies. You may be dealing with a person inside an agency one day, and then that person's gone, and you have a new one another day, and there's a difference in opinion. There's a difference in what they're asking for. We're here to help you get through that. We're here to talk through the issues at hand, and we can bring in to the highest level of an agency if needed. A lot of times, though, the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, having conversations with the people who are actually permitting these projects out in the field, has been very fruitful for us, and we've seen a lot of progress in developing those relationships, and that's what we do. So what my team does as project advisors. They are there to help walk you through the process. We do performance measurements. We support the technology innovations we've talked about. We address kind of the capacity constraints and skills through our assistance programs, and we communicate the value of our environmental reviews and the trade-offs involved in infrastructure development. We recognize, especially with long linear projects, there's always an opportunity that you're going to get a lot of involvement whether it be from various landowners, federal land managing agencies, whether it's a historic property, whether it's an ESA, critical habitat. The longer your project, the more opportunity that you're going to have to involve more. And that's why, even though from a NEPA perspective, it may be a categorical exclusion, it may be an environmental assessment, maybe it's not an EIS fully, but it can still be a very complex and tricky project to get through, and that we're here to help you do that. So we love the job that we do, and we're excited that we're able to share some of it with you today. I think the next slide is kind of like telling you how you can become a FAST-41 covered project. We have email, fast-41@permitting.gov. Click on the QR code if you want to apply. We highly recommend doing like pre-application or consultation meetings with us before submitting a FIN, because we're glad to look at what your application is and help you identify if there's any gaps or anything before you officially submit it. Because once you officially submit it, there's a 14-day timeline on the federal agency that'll be reviewing that request for coverage. You'll notice the bullets here just really quickly. There's not very many of them. And I think they're pretty, what I like to call softball questions, pretty easy to hit. And that literally is what a FAST-41 initiation notice requires. So there's no fee, there's no cost to become a covered project, and you just have about 7 questions to answer. And as long as you meet one of the criteria and you fall under one of the sectors, and you're a real project and a real project sponsor that has technical and financial feasibility for your project, it's a very high level of assurance that you'll receive coverage. So just wanted to hit on that. And I think we're coming up to the last slide from the Permitting Council. Connect with us. Reach out. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me or Craig. We do regret that we're not able to be physically with you in Alaska today, but we will be there in 2025. We're already scheduling an opportunity to be in the area, if you will, and we're looking forward to having conversations. But do not wait for us to get there. Please reach out to us via email or phone call in advance of that. We do have a LinkedIn account. Feel free to follow us. There's a QR code there. And I think the next slide just tells you, thank you so much for your time. I've used a lot of it. I really appreciate being able to share. I hope that the excitement and passion for the program came through to you. Look forward to talking with you more if you're interested. And as promised, I am turning it over to our next panelist. So Ashlee, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you so much for your remarks and the opportunity here, folks. I thought I'd complement the notes that were made by Jennifer and folks here on the benefits of coordination by providing a bit more of a backdrop. Next slide, please, and thank you so much, Craig. Just a few quick notes on the challenges and opportunities we're facing here together, and what we do in OPMP, and then some things we're doing to assist, make sure folks have what they need and can move forward. Next slide, please. So the challenges and opportunities, just like Jennifer was mentioning, there are so many that could be involved in any single broadband project. There could be, in addition to the federal folks, the state folks, the local agencies, the private entities as well. And there would be authorizations needed from all of them. And so this is an important note because every project is different. The processes and the requirements for each agency that needs to be involved is different. And I have some visuals on what that, or what I'm kind of illustrating here. So next slide, please. In Alaska, this is sort of a broad overview of the different types of landowners that we have. Those are the ones that manage different pieces of land. So we have state, federal, local, private. Next slide, please. It breaks down even further because we have within the state different entities that manage different pieces. Same with our federal folks, like Jennifer was mentioning, and then local and private as well. And so then if you move to the next slide, please, there are also the folks, of course, that have regulatory oversight authority regardless of whether they own land. So these are additional entities that could be involved or need to be involved depending on the specifics of your project. So next slide, please, is a quick summary of illustrating just what Jennifer noted about there could be many involved. And so for each project, there is going to be, of course, that need for getting with each of these entities. So for each one, actually, I'll go to the next slide, Craig, and then we'll quickly kind of probably move to the next. This is just the note on needing to get with each entity, learn what authorizations are needed, what are the requirements associated with each, what are the fees, what are the applications, et cetera, that are needed for each. So next slide, please. So in OPMP, what we do is we support and we complement all these different entities together. We bring the applicants, including the contractors, in. We work with the regulators as well, and we coordinate, we integrate with the federal timelines that you're hearing Jennifer discuss there to the extent that we possibly can. And we see kind of the front-loading work as some of the main work that needs to be done at the beginning. And so next slide, please, Craig. We have an upcoming permitting workshop where we're going to have different folks from all these different entities present to speak to the different requirements that they have and answer any questions that you have about working with them specifically. We also recognize that it's really hard to know whether any one of these entities is going to need to be involved. And so to assist in answering those questions, and are they going to need to be involved? Who is that? Who do I talk to get those conversations started? We have, go ahead, next slide, please, Craig. The note on the broadband pre-application checklist and dashboard. So those are items that will help you walk through finding out who you need to talk to and then being able to talk to those folks. So the next slide is a quick snip of the top of what the checklist looks like. If you answer those questions, it'll help you know if you need to talk to this entity here. And then we have the same types of questions for each entity. Following that, we have next slide, a quick snip of the dashboard. Each of these is longer, but are to assist you. I mean, if you see them online, they're longer than what I have snips of here. And they are to assist you in knowing who you can talk to and how to get those conversations started. And then a quick note at the next slide then, Craig, is how you can benefit. If you're applying for Broadband Office Awards, there's a box that can be checked that says you'd like to work with OPMP, and we will help facilitate and walk you through each of these processes and do the integrating that I was mentioning, getting you to the right folks at the right time. At no cost to applicants. And again, we work with all these different folks together. That's the applicants, the contractors, the regulatory entities. We try to work them all into the same big picture so everyone knows who's up next and where they all fall into the grand scheme so timelines can be met. And that's my last substantive slide. The last note is thank you to you folks. I know we're short on time, so I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Jennifer, Ashlee, and Tyler. So I do have a few questions. And I guess I'll start with, and I apologize if I am asking questions that were covered, because there's a lot of information covered in this presentation. And this is open to any of you guys. How can the federal permitting process be made more transparent and efficient to support broadband expansion in Alaska? I'll let any one of you have that.
I'll jump in if that, as far as the federal permit review process. I think the transparency piece is, we talked a little bit about FAST-41. I think that is something that we bring to the table with, having a project covered allows for, and I know Tyler spoke to the benefit of seeing the dashboard and that knowing where the permitting process is at any given time. And, that's from another federal agency. So just imagine the federal agency sees the benefit of it, the project sponsor sees the benefit of it. The citizens in the state of Alaska can see where a project is located, what's going on with the project, how far along are they. There's also pieces of our dashboard that if there were public meetings, scoping meetings, discussions that needed to happen in the public forum, there's an opportunity to post where those are, going to be located, the dates and times and things like that. We call that the postings by agency, and that's publicly available. So I think that there is an opportunity, obviously, if a project were to seek FAST-41 coverage, we have this dashboard tool that would help them. I also would like to, I'll turn it over. I can't see the other panelists' face, so, but I know Ashlee just shared, what what is being done in the coordinated effort that they're doing in open, where they have their dashboard and then the checklist. I think that helps people understand what the process is in the state of Alaska. It can help lead them to making a more informed decision. But I'll stop there and turn it over to Ashlee if she'd like to speak. Like I said, I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot. I can't see your face.
No, that sounds really great, Jennifer. And I want to make sure I gave the federal folks the opportunity there. And I think what she said makes a lot of sense. And we're here to integrate the timelines to the extent that is possible with what Jennifer is talking about there. So working together, looking at the whole thing as a picture and coordinating, sharing information is really going to be key, I think.
Great, thank you. Tyler, I have a question for you. What key factors should project leaders consider to ensure their projects qualify for NTIA support?
All right, so this is a question I am more able to answer because I am more of a grant manager on the back end, so I like this one. So key factors that folks should consider to qualify for funding, and this is not specific to any of our current programs. I want to make that clear. I can't give advice about you applying for a specific program, but in general, with all federal grants and most state grants, I have a few pointers for you. And the first thing you're going to want to do is understand the scoring, the grading, and the review process for that grant, which sounds very simple, but it often gets overlooked. And you need to consider how the program you're designing is going to be scored when you're designing it. You want to aim, if there's a top scoring category for that program, whether it's priority projects for BEAD, or you want to score above 90% for the tribal capacity grants, you want to be in the top category. So it's important for you to understand how the scoring works. How does the initial review work? How does the merit review work? Aim for that top category. So if one of the big scoring criteria is your operational capacity, and you've never received a federal grant before, and you're a fairly small agency, well, I would look around in my community and see if there's anyone else that has received a federal grant, anyone else that has done this kind of work before, and see if they want to join with you. That's how important it is to score at the top. We just finished up our round of digital equity competitive grants, and this was a $1 million fund. It received over 700 applications. That's $6.5 billion in applications. So trust me, there will always be plenty of people scoring in that top percentile, and you want to be there when you're designing your program. And you want to answer, you're going to have a portal where you answer questions, obviously, an application portal. And you want to answer these questions clearly, which again, it sounds simple, but you want to read the questions carefully. And if it says, how will this project benefit Group X? Well, then you want to start your answer with Group X will benefit in this way. That's called bottom line up front, or bluff. That's how you want to, if I were doing it, that's how I would recommend phrasing your questions, so that the people who are reviewing your applications aren't hunting and pecking around to try to figure out if you met the criteria, if you fully answered the question. Because unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you have the best project in the world. Ultimately, it's going to come down to a handful of people reviewing hundreds of applications, and they have to abide by the statutes, they have to abide by the notice of funding and the rules. And so they're going to grade them all evenly. So if your project is the best one in the state, but you didn't phrase it quite right, that's going to be counted against you, unfortunately. I'm not saying that's the way it should work. That's just the way these programs tend to work. So please answer the questions clearly. And when you're done, you want to review the questions. Usually there'll be a question, and then there'll be some sub-questions, and make sure that you yourself can find the answers to every question and sub-question that was asked in that prompt. Because if you can find them all, then the reviewer can probably find them all. You don't want to leave it up to the reviewer's judgment of, oh, did they answer this? Did they not answer this? I'm not quite sure. We're going to have to send it to a second reviewer type thing. And then the last thing I would just add is to focus on what's important. I review a lot of these, not the ones in Alaska, but the ones elsewhere. And that the budget is one thing that trips everyone up, because the budget rules are super arcane. The 2 CFR 200 rules, it gets very complicated. If you haven't done federal grants before, you might not fully understand it. But believe it or not, the budget is not the most important thing. It's not the place where you want to be spending all your time on. we can cure budgets. If you submit a budget that's not quite right, in fact, we love to cure budgets, as the Alaska Broadband Office can attest. There will be months of curing, most likely. A budget that has some errors in it is not going to drop you out of consideration. The most important thing is that you design the program in a way that scores high and that you answer the questions clearly and concisely in a way that the reviewer can find your answers and appropriately scored. So those are my 3 tips for when you're applying for our federal programs.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually some great information. Ashlee, I guess I'll ask you a question. What are the unique permitting challenges in broadband? What are the unique permitting challenges broadband projects face in Alaska, particularly in the state and tribal lands?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the question. I think, I pulled up the FCC map before coming over here, and I think it kind of provides a nice visual that would answer your question pretty well. I mean, you can see there Alaska compared to the rest of the lower 48 and how unserved Alaska is. So we have so many unserved areas, so many communities that need broadband, so many unserved and underserved communities, that is, as compared to the lower 48. So not only do we have so many unserved folks, but we have also just vast swaths of land that are untouched, so no infrastructure getting to these communities. So whereas in the lower 48, you've got existing infrastructure where perhaps laying a fiber optic line could be not as complicated because there's already an existing road there, something to be tacked on. We don't have that so much here. So the amounts of permitting, so bring to the focus here too, is unique too, because you've got all these different entities potentially involved in these long linear projects. Each one of them needs to be contacted. And so what we try to encourage is getting with the communities and the folks early so that you're having those conversations and they're also engaged with you. And the exact same thing with our agencies. So we have many regulators who are very willing to answer questions that you have to make sure that when they get an application from you, it can roll forward as smoothly as possible. They're willing to engage in what we call a pre-application meeting and try to help you know what they'll be looking for. And so having those conversations early is really helpful.
Great, thank you. Time check, I'll do. Okay, one more question for you, Jennifer. What are the common regulatory challenges that broadband projects face, and how does FAST-41 address these issues?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think I'll go back a little bit to the example in the presentation. Then we talked about, long linear project. That's what broadband usually is. So the more opportunity you have to run into different landowners, maybe it's federal landowners, maybe it's state landowners, for your right-of-way, maybe you have a historic site, maybe an ESA critical habitat. There's a lot of opportunity, and you have to give consideration to where you want to lay the broadband, right? We talked a little bit, or actually Tyler talked about submerge. Is it an open trench, type of situation, and so the type of construction associated. So there's a lot of challenges that can come with broadband, and what we can do and what we do, similar to the California Mid-Mile, is we bring the people together who are responsible for issuing the right-of-way authorization, who is responsible for the ESA Section 7 consultation, who is the State Historic Preservation Officer, or if it's a Tribal Historic Preservation Officer that needs to be involved in the process. We ensure that from the very beginning that the people have the information that they need to know if they are going to make a authorization or a review for the project itself. And then we set aside that time of understanding with them through direct conversation, coordination, and in cases where necessary, consultation, so that we can advance that project to some type of predictable timeline so that the developer is able to make informed business decisions.
Great, thank you. And I know there's a lot of information in a kind of shortened amount of time, so if you guys are okay, I'll open it up to some question and answers. Q&A?
Sure.
Anyone have a question? No. Okay. I guess, do each of you want to say a final kind of thought to the audience? Tyler, I guess you could start since we'll go this way.
Yeah, I would just say thank you for all the work you're doing. None of this work would be possible without you. None of this funding is useful without you all doing the work in your communities and building these projects. I think this is pretty neat that we are all part of something transformational in our communities here in Alaska, which is not something we get to say fairly often in this state. A lot of very amazing infrastructure work going on. One thing I did want to mention is that our Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program for tribal entities, for Native entities, that is now open. That opened on September 25th, and it runs through February 7th. And that is a $45 million pot of money nationwide. But I know we have a huge percentage of the tribes in the nation here in Alaska. We also have a lot of ANCs that qualify. So please take a look at that program. It's a great opportunity to implement a digital equity plan or digital equity activities in your community. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
And thanks, Tyler. I like a lot of what he said too about the benefits and the excitement that's here with everyone working together. We, like Tyler said, have this opportunity to do some really good things in our state, and that's like Tyler said, really a unique thing here. I mean, the benefits to our communities, we'd love to see that, and in working together, we can see that happen. And so, my final remark is just if there's anything on hopefully our website that will help you, and then feel free to reach out with any questions. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Jennifer?
Yeah, I would just echo thanks everyone for the time. Thank you for inviting us to be a part of the panel today. We are excited that you invited us into your state of Alaska to be a part of the Alaska Fiber Optic Project. We look forward to future projects in the state of Alaska. And if there's anything that we can do, if there are questions, it was a lot of information at one time. We're glad to take a phone call and email. I think you all have our information. If not, please let us know through the director there, and we will make sure you have the information you need to reach out to us. And really appreciate the collaborative effort. It rings through as you hear Tyler and Ashlee speak about what's going on there in the state of Alaska. So just would wrap with thank you very much, and we appreciate being a part of it.
Thank you. And Matt, I'm not putting you on the spot, but it'll be interesting to see the second annual next year when we have the same event. It'll be interesting to see all the projects that are starting and taking place within this next year.
Yeah, no, we absolutely want to. And BLM, I'm going to call you out again. So this morning in the conversation we had together, BLM expressed interest in doing a panel discussion like this, Jennifer, and hopefully next year you can actually come up and do it in person. Craig, thanks for the help. Really appreciate it. And Ashlee and Tyler, thank you for participating as well. So hopefully next year we have a lot more projects on your dashboard that are being funded around the state.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. And so for everybody else, first, can we give a round of applause to everybody that